wonderful return to Test cricket. We couldn't have asked for anything more better. The English rain played spoil sport on day 1, but that was only on day 1. Day 2 to day 5, the conditions were absolutely fantastic to play in. Holder in the first innings, career best figures, Gabriel in the second innings, and an outstanding 95 from Blackwood on day 5. This and a lot more to talk about on Ksport Weekly. What a way for Test cricket to return.
Awesome.
Yeah, the English
Just
rains.
felt alive, man. You know what? The best part was Sunday, where saw live cricket, live football, and Grand Prix as well, Formula 1. So, bloody hell, I mean, that's like good old days, huh?
Yeah, so the thing, the English rain obviously threatened, but we got a result on session 3 of day 5.
That's also part of an English summer, isn't it? If there's no rain and cricket is not stopped because of rain and it's happening in England, it's not normal. But yeah, I mean, it couldn't have been a better comeback test match where till the last session, you weren't sure which side the match is going to go. Yeah, right, so the draw was out of the window. It was either going to be England or West Indies, but then, the last moment, you weren't sure. So, yeah, I mean, brilliant comeback test match here. And it felt so good, the commentary, the cricket.
Especially when Sky let Holding and Bishop on commentary when, like, towards the end, they both was. I think Bishop was calling and then Holding was the expert. So, very nice gesture. Nice gesture indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, both the West Indies there. And this is a huge test victory here. How I see it is it's massive because of the fact that, Windies have changed their approach towards test match cricket. It's more the doggedness and discipline, which is not synonymous with, let's say, West Indies cricket. West Indies cricket is all about swag and flair and big shots. And suddenly, and this is not new. I mean, if anyone who's followed Windies cricket for the last year and a half, they've been trying to play this brand of cricket, and I think they're getting there. I think they will only get better.
Yeah. So, Deep, let's start with England. Stokes' captaincy. What did you think of his captaincy in the first place?
See, I always think, Adi, that Stoke is a better option than Joe Root. And I'll tell you why. Not because of anything else, but I mean, Joe Root is a very good batsman. But if anyone who's followed his batting ever since he's become the captain, his numbers have kind of dipped.
Sort of dropped,
So, and the sample size is big enough. It's not a small sample size where you can't infer saying maybe it's not effective. The sample size is big enough to kind of say that it may be affecting his batting. That's one. And if you look at Ben Stokes, I think he's a natural leader. I think, Joe Root is a nice guy. He comes across as a nice guy. Again, I don't know him personally. I don't know Ben Stokes personally either. Right? But I just get a feeling that Joe Root is too nice a guy to be a captain, because as a captain, you need to take tough decisions. You need to take those tough calls. And I think maybe at times Joe Root doesn't want to take it. Yeah. Ben Stokes, for example, I mean, Stuart Broad, that's a huge call.
Huge call. Very big call.
I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm not going there. But I'm just saying that's a big call. And at least he showed that he had the courage as a leader to take those tough calls and stand by it.
Stand by it, exactly. But Deep, my question is, as in, he's a three format player.
Yeah.
And on top of it, he's an all-rounder. And on top of it, if you're going to give him captaincy, if a one-dimensional player like Joe Root, I'm saying, I'm excusing his bowling because he doesn't bowl that often. But if captaincy can have some effect on a one-dimensional player like Root, what would it do to a two-dimensional? He's an excellent slip fielder as well. So, your best all-rounder, best bowler when it reverse swinging, your most reliable middle-order batsman, and on top of that, if you give him captaincy, don't you think it'll be too much to ask for?
I don't think so. I'll tell you why I don't think so. Because I think Ben Stokes is a natural leader. He is a natural leader. So it is not something that, I mean, this was his first test. But if you see the way he handled the media, the way he handled his players, even when England in the last 10 odd runs, when Windies needed 10 odd runs, and he will take those tough calls and he will put himself in those tough positions. He was bowling in the end. He did not want to give the ball to anyone else. I mean, I think he's a natural leader, and it might not be a pressure on him because he is anyways a leader. Even though if he's not the captain of the side, people or his teammates or England as a country, as a cricketing nation, looks up to him to deliver. So I think it comes naturally to him, handling pressure and everything else. And I don't think, and anyways, I think as far as white ball cricket is concerned, Ian Morgan is a very, very good captain. So I'm talking about only test match cricket here. I think as long as Ian Morgan is there, he'll be leading the white ball teams.
White ball.
Yeah, so as far as test is concerned, I think they should seriously look at this as an option. I certainly, because the thing that has happened in white ball cricket, they need it in red ball cricket as well. You know, that step up, as you call it. So with Ian Morgan coming in and, Strauss and all being the cricket director, there's a change in white ball cricket attitude. I think they might need that in red ball cricket as well. And I think Ben Stokes leading them in red ball cricket might make that happen.
Yeah. So, Deep, just touching upon the thing that you said, him picking Broad. This pitch was probably the most un-English pitch that you would have seen in the last couple of years. On day two, the pitch was looking like day 5. A couple of balls keeping low, the one bouncing high. Broad and Oakes with their experience and cutters would have been far more useful than, say, a Wood. And yes, Archer did well in the second innings, but you think Broad and Oakes would have been more useful? Did selection cost them the match, or is it too big? I don't
think it costed them the match, but I would have gone with Broad for a very simple reason, as you mentioned. If you look at Broad on not very responsive surfaces, he's done well because he has those variations. Cutters and slower ones. Remember when England came over to India, Broad did all right? He picked up a lot of wickets with his cutters and everything else. So on surfaces like the one we had at Southampton, I think Broad would have been a better option as far as I'm concerned, looking at what Broad can do on surfaces like these. As far as the surface itself is concerned, Adi, listen, this is the first game that they played. They played a practice game before this. The gentleman, the curator, at Agel's Ball, this is first year there at Hampshire Cricket. Right, okay. So it's not that he's had the time to spend and prepare a pitch, right? So he hasn't had the time. This is his first season, and this is his first big game, as in proper game, and it happened to be a test match. So I think we got to keep those in mind. But Southampton being south of England, generally it would be like this. South of England pitches are like that. So I think the next couple of test matches, you'll see a difference in the nature of the pitch when we go to Manchester for the next 2. In fact, the next 3, the first test against Pakistan is also at Manchester. So the next 2 games or next 3 games, the surfaces would be a lot different. The conditions would be a lot different because north of England, it rains more.
It's different.
It's more cloudy. Yeah. So the weather will also be different for the next games.
Okay. Moving on, Deep.
Thank you so much. There are quite a few people out there who are asking questions and all and compliments and wishes. Thank you so much to all of you. Yeah.
Yep. Deep, moving on to the West Indies pace attack. I don't want to sound slightly naive by saying that they're rolling back the years, but they're really, really doing well. Yeah.
I think the biggest thing, Adi, is them being disciplined. If you look at, there were passages of play where they weren't picking wickets, but they weren't giving away runs. They weren't trying things out. They were just bowling that channel. Shannon Gabriel, Kemar Rhodes, Jason Boulder, Alzari, who's just come in. He's the youngest. He's the newest kid on the block. I think what is being ingrained in them is that if you're not picking up wickets, be disciplined, don't give away runs. Right? And that's what is heartening to see. See, skill levels were always there, whether it was Kemar Rhodes or Jason Holder or Shem Gabriel. It's not that overnight they've improved their skill levels. It's just that they've become more disciplined, they've become more stable, and which is very unlike West Indies. West Indies is very rarely would you see a West Indian cricketer struggle. Either they'll be this side of the fence or that side of the fence. Nobody would want to, struggle. That's and what I've noticed in the last year and a half, not just this test match, even before this, they're ready to do the tough things. The tough things will be what? Slog it out. Even if you're not getting wickets, just bowl one area and be disciplined.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference between, say, the West Indies 2-3 years ago and West Indies now.
Yeah, just one thing. So second innings, Shannon Gabriel, while he was fielding at mid-on, I can't remember who. I think it was Zach Crawley who played towards mid-on, and
Yeah.
Gabriel was actually moving like a tractor to the ball. And I thought this guy was not going to bowl in the second innings, and then he turns up, like you said.
Yeah.
Like this is a discipline which you don't see in the West Indies often. He comes back and then takes 5 wickets. And the most beautiful thing is they've taken 20 wickets without their best bowler, Kemar Roach, with going wicketless in the entire match.
Yeah. See, the thing is, I was talking to someone who was there for the practice game or watched it practice game, and he mentioned the fact that Shannon Gabriel was looking very dangerous even during the practice game. So, Shannon Gabriel is someone I think is a very, very good bowler. In the past, could be a little temperamental in the past. It'll be interesting to see what he does in the next couple of test matches. But like I said, this is a different unit. This is a different West Indian unit where people are ready to kind of struggle through those tough periods. So even Kemar Roach, he didn't pick wickets, but he bowled all right. He was disciplined. He did not give away runs. It wasn't like, okay, I'm trying too much to pick wickets. I'm not, so I'm going to bowl all over the place, try a few things. They weren't doing it. Right? So I think that is something that was heartening to see. And even, you mentioned Blackwood. Jermaine Blackwood, I think he's a great example. Look at his past performances. You'll see a lot of these, flamboyant 20-30s. He would never. Aggressive. 40 ball, 35 runs. Brilliant shots, and then one shot too many, and you're out. But look at that innings that he played. Second innings, the 95 was a dogged 95. It wasn't the usual Blackwood innings. So that just tells you that that the culture in that team is changing.
And Archer was menacing when Blackwood was in his 30s and 40s. Archer was bowling absolutely menacing. Yeah,
got hit on his chest and whatever. He saw through that spell of Archer. That spell that Archer picked up a couple of wickets as well. That was quite a spell.
Yeah, and it was just too surprising and pleasing at the same time to see someone turn up and score a 95. If you actually notice that his last 50 plus score, last time he's crossed 50 in test matches, was 2 years ago, and it was against England.
Sure, fair enough.
Yeah.
Like there's a good question from Ninsta. All right, it's like deciding to bat first on an overcast condition. Okay, I believe this is worth the talking point. Ideally speaking, that's a brave move and maybe the right move in normal circumstances, right? Because you look at that pitch, because once you see that pitch, you got to think about batting fourth or bowling fourth as well. In a test match, the important part is not looking and thinking about day one. You're looking at day 5, day 4, day 5. Basically, the fourth innings is what you're looking at. And I think from that perspective, normal circumstances, I would have said yes, do it. But the reason I wouldn't have gone with bat first this situation is after 117 odd days of not playing international cricket, it's always difficult to get your rhythm back. And as a bowler, you have better chances of getting into a game. Because if you bowl, let's say your first spell is not good, you always have a second spell. If your first over is not good, you always have a second, third, fourth over to get your rhythm back. But as a batsman, you've got one ball.
One chance. Yeah.
You just got one chance. So purely from that perspective, I wouldn't have batted first and say, okay, you know what? We are playing after a long time, right? Situations are different, conditions are different. Let's try and get into the game first. And doing that, the best thing would be to bowl first, as in kind of protect your batsman. And you've got gun bowlers, right? You could gun bowlers, overcast or not. And anyways, one of the things, as rightly mentioned, in England, you definitely look at the weather report. Because I checked the weather report before the game and I knew the first 3 days it's going to be overcast. It was there in the weather report. So at times you also look at the weather report. And especially when you're talking about England, right? You look at weather conditions, and but even otherwise, I think even if it was bright and sunny, right, not overcast, I still would have bowled first this test match. Not later, not any other condition, but for the first test match, I would have.
Deep, just one thing that I want to add, which is not what we discussed, is this. I think generally the touring teams, when they come in, say for example, if you're touring England, when you guys toured England, you would have played a Worcester or a Gloucester or any team, where one of those teams would have had 4 first 11 players, and then they would have had 7 second 11 players. But I think what helped West Indies a lot here is, they went into the 25-man squad, which doesn't happen. It's probably happened for the first time in the history of cricket. They had 2 games with quality opposition, meaning they were not playing second 11 players. So I think playing amongst themselves for 2 games, it actually helped them a lot.
2 things. Number 1, I think this point was made by Bish on air, and it's a brilliant point. He said, normally what happens, you reach a country a week before. But now you had to, for COVID reasons, you had to go there before 2-3 weeks. So you had enough time to acclimatize to the weather and your surroundings, right? So when you're there somewhere for 2 weeks, it kind of becomes your home. You get used to the hotel room, you get used to the process and everything else. So that makes you very comfortable. That's one. Second thing, if you look at the practice match that they played, it was the top bowlers on one side and the top batsmen on the other. Right?
Correct.
So your Blackwood, your Shea Hope, and your Brathwaite's were playing Shannon Gabriel, Holder, even though Holder did not bowl, but Shannon Gabriel, Kemar Roach. So the 2 teams were so nicely made that, the top bowlers were bowling against the top batsmen and the top batsmen were batting against the top bowlers.
So both of them got their due practice.
Yeah, for the practice game that they played. So I think that was something that was well planned, and that's something that you would see with any Simmons team. Every time you look at Simmons as a coach, you look at his teams, they're very organized teams. Look at Afghanistan when he was coaching them,
or
even
Ireland
when he was coaching them. He's a very good coach, is what I think, looking at all the teams, and he's very organized. The teams that he coaches are very organized. The sessions or the preparation is very planned. And I think this combination of Simmons and Holder is a very good combination as far as Windies Test cricket is concerned.
Yeah. So speaking about Holder, I think they both are again, I wouldn't say Simmons is very un-West Indian or something, but Holder for sure is a very, very un-West Indian character, more studious, more dodgy, studious, very, very well prepared. So I think he's
very
absolutely led them.
And very, very well.
Yeah, and leading them by example. I mean, you couldn't get better. And Deep, moving on, I thought in Southampton it was not just raining water; it was also raining DRS. As in, so before you go, I'll tell you something. So in the history, there was one England-Bangladesh Test match which was played in Bangladesh, which had 26 reviews. This match is the second highest with 23 reviews.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So
sorry, 22 reviews.
22. Okay. So now, for me, I think, we talk about DRS and everything else, but I honestly believe that we have to start looking at, listen, these 2 umpires are like proper umpires.
Elite panel umpires.
Yeah, right.
Very important to mention that.
You can't talk about neutral and non-neutral with these umpires, and especially you can't talk about them with 35 plus cameras on the ground, right? With DRS and all. I on social media, people suggested something on those lines.
Bias.
About bias. But you got to be stupid. You got to be stupid to be biased with 35, 36 cameras and DRS and all this technology.
The world watching you. The world is watching.
The world watching. I mean, you can't do that. I mean, and they won't do that. They won't do that. So, but what we really have to see is the quality. The quality, because I also believe with DRS coming in, I just have a feeling the umpires also played safe because they know that there is a DRS. And the team, if they use the DRS and if it's umpire's call, they're not going to lose the DRS. So at times I just get a feeling that umpires are play a little more safe with the advent of DRS, introduction of DRS.
And more importantly, one of the reasons for numbers going up is teams had 3 DRS per innings, not 2.
Yeah.
So obviously you have more freedom, right? Like, so you just take one, for example, West Indies when they were batting, before they were 4 down or before they were 3 down or something, they took 3 DRS in a row.
Yeah.
So it's
true.
So having that one extra is the extra one gives you a lot of freedom. I think one is that's one.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next point, Deep. England's first test blues. So 5 test series in a row, they've lost the first test.
Yeah.
And this includes 2 home series.
Starters. Yeah, the slow starters, man. Remember the last West Indies series as well. They lost the first test match, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Blackwood got 100 and Sheho got 100 and all. So, it is what it is. But the thing is this, they really need to sort this out now, England, because I just have a feeling that England, the emphasis has been so much on white ball cricket last couple of years. They have to find a balance. Before that it was all about red ball cricket, and then Andrew Strauss came in and
before Bayliss came in.
So then it became white ball cricket, and now again. So somewhere, they'll have to find a mid path where they are focusing, and they can, because they have almost different setups now. They have different captains, almost different setups. So I don't think that should be too difficult for them to manage 2 different kind of setup and the mid path. Yeah,
and I think, Deep, you mentioned a very interesting point. So 2 different setups. So if you look at their ODI team, so they have Barstow, Roy. Like, if you look at the top 6, everybody has played a healthy number of matches. So which means they have a lot of experience. Whereas if you look at the test team, Burns is new, Sibley is new, Denley is new, Crawley is new, Pope is new. That's like 5. Okay.
Adi, there is a problem there. There is a problem in picking, maybe in selection. Again, this is from an outsider's perspective. For example, you're going with Joe Denley, who's 34, 35, right? Fair enough. I'm not talking about him as a player. And you have Zach Crawley. Now, what happens when Joe Root comes back?
Exactly.
Right. So Joe Root will play at number 4. Ideally speaking, you would have put Zach Crawley there at number 4, thinking that, okay, Joe Root comes back and Zach Crawley sits out. Zach Crawley is 21, right?
And Zach Crawley performed.
And he performed. But I'm just generally saying, forget performance. Even before, if 2 players are together at the same level, there's a 34-year-old and a 21-year-old. You would be looking at 21-year-old, right? To kind of groom him and stuff like that. So, I don't know. Then Josh Butler, he's a great guy, right? But look at his test numbers in last 2-3 series. You have someone like Ben Foakes who's sitting outside, who's the best wicketkeeper England has right now.
Or even
the last test series he played. Yeah, the last test series he played, he's got a 50 and 100 against Sri Lanka, if I'm not wrong. Right? So he's not muppet with the bat either. But that's the reason I'm saying you've got to take some tough calls. And that's the reason I think you need someone like Ben Stokes who would be there to take the tough calls. I'm not saying right or wrong again. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying all his calls will be right, but at least if there is a tough call which needs to be taken, I think he has it in him to take those tough calls.
Yeah, and again, for a team which has eyes on the number 1 spot and who claim to have a dream bowling attack, I think if we go back, instead of 5 series, if we go back 10 series, in their last 10 test series, they've lost the first test in 8 of them. This is nowhere close to being good enough if you want to be number 1 or if you're thinking of winning the test championship, if it happens. Well, that's a different question altogether.
That's an interesting stat. Wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, so it's nowhere near good enough. Like you said, it's almost like before 2015, they were a test team struggling in ODIs, struggling in white ball, and then now it seems the trend has flipped. So it's
and the other important thing, this newfound obsession with 90 plus miles bowler. You know what I'm saying? Even when you listen to them, they go like, oh, that was 90 plus miles, or that was 92 miles. That is important. I mean,
This
that
is
is
one
very
thing.
important.
How many times in the commentary box have I prompted you Deep 145, Deep 141, Deep 1... So just don't blame them.
No, I mean, I can understand that, right? But I mean, the obsession is in a different. I understand where the obsession's coming from. That obsession's coming from the last Ashes drubbing in Australia. In Australia, you need quick bowlers, right? Because you don't have that kind of help off the surface. The ball doesn't swing that much, so you need quick bowlers who can bowl at 145 plus, right? But in England, you don't really need it. I mean, if you have it, that's a luxury. But it's not that you need it. In on those surfaces, in those conditions, you need bowlers who can move the ball around. And I'm not. This is not a. This is not a. I'm not criticizing Woods or Archer. I mean, they are gun bowlers. But also, I'm saying you can't be over obsessed with fast bowling,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if I were in that English camp, I would actually kind of wrap both Archer and Wood in a cotton wool and say, you know what? There'll be rotation anyways, right? Because they're playing 6
A
test
lot of
matches
test
in
matches.
6
Yeah.
weeks, right? In 6 weeks, 6 test matches is back-to-back test matches, right? So anyways, there's an Ashes series coming up. So I'm going to be very, very careful how I handle Wood and Archer because Wood and Archer will be extremely important to England, especially when they're touring Australia on those surfaces.
No, and the other thing is, I'm not trying to compare English county and international cricket. But if you look at English county, it's not your 140 plus bowlers who take wickets. Your dibbly medium pacers take tons and tons of wickets.
Adi, that's where the issue is with England because you play so much of cricket. Somebody who bowls at 140 plus cannot play domestic cricket or county cricket regularly. You understand what I'm saying? Because the idea is it takes a lot out of a bowler to bowl at 140 plus. And if you have to play a county game every week, you can't survive. You cannot survive. Then the best thing that the bowlers can do after that is, you know what? I'm gonna bring my pace down. I'm gonna start looking at bowling the right channel, swing, and then start bowling at 135. So there will not be anyone who's played more than 3-4 years of county cricket and still bowling at 140-45, right? So from an England perspective, it's very, very important that if they've identified any young guy, just be careful with them because once they get into the rigors of county cricket, day in and day out, playing and bowling 20 overs in a game, no chance a bowler will be able to survive bowling at 140-145 plus.
Yeah. Deep, looking forward to the next game. So the couple of changes. So I think, like I said, Root is coming back. So one of Denley or Crawley have to go out.
I said I'd go with Joe Denley. I go with Joe Denley. I'll stick with Zach Crawley because in the South Africa series as well, he played as an opener and he did well. So I'm going to go with, and I don't know. I mean, Joe Root prefers batting at 4. I don't mind seeing Joe Root at 3 also. I mean, it's up to him. So Zach Crawley, Joe Root, Zach Crawley, whatever. And bowling wise, listen, I wouldn't mind looking at. Wouldn't mind Broad. I would look at Broad definitely. But again, that surface is a surface where it might help someone like Broad a little more.
Yep.
Where there is a little more help.
Yeah. And it's almost like it's a must-win game for England. If you want to win the series, you have to win the next 2 matches. There's no choice. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, Deep. So I'm saying John Campbell, who got hit on the toe by Archer, he did retire hurt, came out to bat, but he was limping when he came out to bat. So not sure if he's going to be fit to play the next game. West Indies have a really hot prospect in their ranks. His TNT is Josh Da Silva. So they've been rating him quite highly. So
he's a wicket keeper as well.
Yeah, so he could get a chance.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him. I've heard good things about him, as you mentioned. He's got some runs at the practice game as well.
Yeah,
and he's a young guy. And let's see how it goes. I guess so him, and I think West Indies 11 is quite set, isn't it? I mean, that's how I look at it. I think again, Nista has come up with the Ben Foakes for Butler. I wouldn't mind that at all. Ben Foakes for Butler. I think something also the way that Josh Butler is getting out, Adi, it's not he. I mean, he does not look comfortable, and that happens. That happens with everyone when you're not scoring runs and you're under pressure. There are a lot of things that creep in, technically, and it creeps in not because technically there is anything wrong. I mean, I was watching his head falling over and all that. I mean, you can call that technical, but that's more mind thing where, mentally you kind of are anxious and stuff like that. And, you're second guessing yourself. Yeah. So I wouldn't mind seeing Ben Foakes and in place of Butler as mentioned there, broad forward. I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's
That's the other option, but you got to be careful as in, that's where I'm going to keep my physio very close to me in terms of workload management and see, who's doing what. You never know how someone like Jofra Archer might be feeling after a game. Anderson is he's a stable guy. He's there.
wrong
He's
side of
always
30.
there.
But he's still in the
Yeah,
wrong
but
side of 30s.
so you got to be careful. So that call will obviously, I'm sure the physio will have a part to play in that as well.
Yeah. One more. I think Ashish had asked a question: Denley or Crawley? I think Deep had already answered the
Yeah,
question. So you're going with Crawley.
I'm gonna go with Crawley. Yes.
Yeah. There's some comment on umpires. They're in the elite panel. How can they be elite? I mean, and he's also contradicted himself by saying humans are prone to errors. So I think.
Yeah, but you know what, Adi? I mean, you really need to look at the level of umpiring as well because 50-50, I can understand, right? All these umpire calls and all that, that is understandable, and I stick with that umpire's call, even though a lot of people don't like the umpire's call, but I'm going to stick with the umpire's call. Maybe we can do a program on that later and why. But my
Sure.
point is, remember first innings, Joe Burns leg before? That was given not out. That was a half volley
Rory
ball.
Burns.
Sorry, Joe Burns. Sorry, Rory Burns. Rory Burns leg before first innings, he was plumb in front. How can you give that not out? I can understand you give that out and Rory Burns asking for a DRS. I can understand that. But that was a half volley ball. Rory Burns, who was shuffling, his front foot was every ball, not just that ball. Every ball that he played, his front foot was in front of the off stump.
Natural tendency to go across.
That's his technique, right? So as an umpire, you're also watching that. As an umpire, you're also watching the batsman's technique, and you know straight away if someone with that technique, he's susceptible to that leg before thing because his front foot is on the off stump, right? So you're ready for that. And my point is when umpires miss these howlers, and that's happening way too often. The 50-50 again, I agree. These are human errors. It'll go your way one day, it won't go your way one day. But these stuff are something. That Rory Burns leg before was, I don't know how can an umpire of that level can miss it.
Yeah. Some more questions.
Okay, Cornwall. What was that question? 1 second. That was
Rakeem
another
Cornwall?
question. Rakeem Cornwall for where is it? For Alzari Joseph in Manchester? No, I don't think so because Manchester, anyways, it'll be more pacer friendly than what we saw at Southampton.
Yeah. And I think they intentionally played an extra batsman because of their fragile. West Indies. Let's put it simple. To put it simply, their bowling is far better than their batting.
And that's the same. That's the same with both the sides, right? I mean, bowling is their strongest suit, but also the fact that Jason Holder is not scoring runs. Their main strength is their mid order.
He's because if I remember right, even in the first practice match, I don't think he batted. The second practice match, he came out and then he got out. He scored a couple of runs.
No, the last couple of Test series, I don't think he's got too many. I know. You'll be able to.
But he loves
that.
batting again. He loves batting against England.
Yeah, and you know what? I just loved his interview before the first Test match about all-rounder, number one all-rounder. Him and Windsor.
Like even after he took a 6-4, he said, "All I need to do is now just score 100."
Yeah. So I like Jason Holder, man. I really, really like him as a captain. I think one of the better captains in international cricket now.
Deep bold call. West Indies have not won a Test series in England since 1988. That's only 32 years ago. Bold call, bold prediction.
Then I doubt it. I doubt. I mean, with all due respect, though, I love the way Windies are playing their cricket now. But beating England in England would be a tough call. It's not an impossible call. It is very, very possible. But I think it's a very, very tough call looking at, Joe Root coming back. That's a huge advantage that they have now. I mean, him as
That's
a
90
batsman.
test matches coming back into the team.
Exactly. That's one. Secondly, obviously, if Broad plays, he's going to play with some purpose there. I think it's going to be a great series. I think it's going to be a very, very well fought series. I think that's the mindset that Windies are ready for, fighting. I think, and that's what we'll see.
Anyways. Yeah, so thanks, Deep. So that nice catching
Yeah.
up.
Same here, buddy.
Let's do the same after the second test, and
Sure.
hope we'll have a lot more to talk about.
Absolutely. All right. And thank you all for joining us and being there. And see you back again.
Yeah, see you. Stay safe, Deep.
See you. Right. Cheers, buddy.